Hello, hello. Thanks so much for tuning in to the BBXX channel. Be sure to subscribe if you don't already for more episodes like this of Food for Thought. So today we're going to be talking about the difference between jealousy and envy, which, again, as I've said before, I love these terms and terminologies and subtle differences and the way we use language and how sometimes misuse language in a way that might perpetuate misinterpretation of people's intentions, our own, or kind of cause confusion, not only in relationships, but in a linguistic sense. It's always interesting to see how our culture is reflected through the way we use language, not only in the words themselves, but the meaning behind them. So, jealousy and envy, to start off, yes, they are very similar, but they are not the same. I myself actually I kind of just thought of envy as a really strong version of jealousy. And I don't know, if you're like me, I don't really use the word envy that much because it sounds really strong, a bit harsh or just too intense. It's like, okay, well, I can say, oh, I'm so jealous of that. But, to be like, oh, I'm so envious. It just feels a bit like, oh, but no, not that much, Don't worry. So they're not actually the same. And what's especially interesting is that in the Spanish language, and living for a couple years in Santiago, Chile, I had the opportunity to learn so many things about language in general, about Spanish versus English. And in Spanish, they use these words correctly, jealousy and envy. So I'm not sure what happened in the English language. And again, it might be about, what we do or don't feel comfortable expressing. So let me cut to the chase. Jealousy is not wanting someone else to have what you have. So if you're dating somebody and they're talking to somebody else, they've made a new friend at work that you don't know, they're hanging out a lot, you, as the partner of that person, might feel jealous of the other person, but it's not about what the other person has. It's about not wanting them to have what you have. Whereas envy is to envy someone or something means wanting something they have that you don't. So perhaps that new mysterious coworker, you as the partner might be jealous of the time they're spending with your partner, of them, etc. Whereas that other person is envious of you and the relationship that you have with your partner. So it's really interesting because when we use these words really casually, say, oh, I'm so jealous or jelly, a lot of times what we should be saying is que envidia. I'm so jealous. And again, that's what people do say in the Spanish language. And so it's really interesting because if you dive into things a bit deeper, I can't help but wonder if somehow in the English language we became comfortable with the idea of other people wanting what we have, because that means we've achieved something. It means success. It means desirability, yet somehow are still less comfortable with the inevitable reality that at some point we might also want something or be envious of something that someone else has that we don't. And so I do think it is important to distinguish these words and try and use them in the correct way to kind of reform those associations and pathways and to destigmatize the word in itself, but to also destigmatize the roles of these words in our lives, in our realities, and in our relationships. So go forth and use your vocabulary correctly. Let us know how it goes. Let us know how it feels, and perhaps take advantage of the opportunity to explain these subtle differences to other people who perhaps also weren't aware and might also want to change the language they use to reflect the real definitions and to see how other people react to the reality of jealousy and the reality or new reality of envy. So thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Food for Thought. If you don't subscribe already, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Be sure to check out all of these episodes on our podcast as well, which is available on all streaming platforms and is called BBXX Let's Get Intimate. And I guess now on the audio, that was for the video, and I'm thinking for like YouTube stuff, but I guess now here I can add, thanks so much for tuning in for another episode of Food for Thought. If you don't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can be notified when we come out with new episodes, and to just take one moment of your time to show your support, by subscribing, scrolling down to the bottom of the podcast where you can leave a review, where you can leave a rating and write a review, and perhaps even to share this with one or two or three friends, with one or a few friends who you think could benefit from it. Because who can't benefit from better understanding themselves so that they can connect deeper with other people as a result? #Let's get intimate.